Hello, it is June 30th and it is 4:20 p.m. I just had to let the government know again right now that at 6 a.m. this morning, since today is June 30th, at 6 a.m. this morning, um, what happened is Kelly from law enforcement was hitting my wedding finger and making my lips, kind of pushing them in to make it look like someone was kissing me on the lips. And then again at 3 p.m. today, um, Kelly was um, stimulating my penis, causing hormones to increase, and also hitting my right testicle. This, of course, is not torture. This is sexually stimulating someone. It is something that I had to let the government know about because it is a waste of taxpayer money. If the people in government knew how advanced this technology is, they would be crying tears of blood right now. Is how sad and depressing this is. The fact of the matter is, I'm fighting this case where, since I gained the slightest bit of mental maturity as a child, all I've done in life is work hard with my mother. And law enforcement, as soon as they found out about my brain savant, they have been out to try to frame me with one false testimony after another. Now that all the false testimonies have been caught, law enforcement wishes to blame me for things that their own BFFs in the family, whom they have been BFFs with for decades, might have said something around me before I had even gained the slightest bit of mental maturity as a child, when I was an 11-year-old child in the year 2001 and the war had occurred. And law enforcement wishes to use something that one of their own BFFs could have said around me as a child that could have been considered bad in any way, shape, or form. And law enforcement wishes to use that against me, the child who had not even gained the slightest bit of mental maturity in this world, to be able to be left at home alone, due to which I had to be left with one of law enforcement's BFFs while my mother would either be working at fast food restaurants or in factories at nighttime. And law enforcement wishes to use that, what their own BFFs might have said around me as a child when I hadn't even gained the slightest bit of mental maturity as a child, to be able to use that against me as an adult, only because all of the different false testimonies that they try to frame me for have all been caught and found as being complete and total lies. This is the last talking point that law enforcement has. Let me tell the government about the different kinds of false testimonies that law enforcement has used so far. In 2023, when law enforcement had run their money schemes and sex fraud the entire year, they tried to frame me for a wedding incident that by flashing me with severe mental torture drugs every time a wedding would be mentioned around me. I told law enforcement right there and then that I was not present at this wedding, couldn't afford to go there because being raised by a single mother working at fast food restaurants and factories, there's no way for me to have been going to any weddings at all. So they had basically confessed to a crime to me, since the entire year of 2023, all law enforcement was doing was running sex schemes and money fraud, which meant that if there was a crime that occurred, obviously they covered over it, which means that law enforcement basically committed that crime. And I told them right there and then, 2023, look, I think you committed that crime, sir, not me. So yeah, basically that was the first one in 2023. Then they had a whole bunch of ones. November 20th, 2025, before I even went to Russia, in early November 2025, I let law enforcement know about all the previous false testimonies that they had made, due to which they started panicking. And that's when I kind of figured out that they were planning on making another false testimony against me. Well, the person the government put in there to make the false testimony, they had an informant. So law enforcement and my dad's greedy framer sisters all got caught with that one. That was also orchestrated by law enforcement themselves. So the government basically got interfered in the middle at the very last second But it wasn't. It was planned out by law enforcement and my dad's greedy framer sisters to try to frame me for the November 20th false testimony. And when they were planning out the November 20th false testimony, my dad's greedy framer sisters also confessed to the government informant that they were going to and planning on making other sets of lies against me after this November 20th false testimony to make sure that there was no way that my brain savant could be freed, so that my mother could not get the millions and billions that it's supposed to make if my dad, the greedy framer, and his framer sisters are not getting it. Soon afterwards, they did make the false testimonies and lies against me. And what ended up happening was, it was a funny scene, because every time they would go make it in court, the courts would just look at them like, thank you for letting us know. We looked over November 20th, and now you have more sets of statements against Hassan. So thank you for letting us know. And so what my dad, the greedy framer sisters, didn't know was the government informant was the person helping them fabricate the false testimony, which was hilarious, because they kept arguing in court while making those statements that we really did witness him commit the crime. The reason they were doing this was because on the testimony stand, they were asked a question due to which they just gave it away that they fabricated it. So they, even afterwards, they kept going to court like, we really did witness him commit the crime for November 20th, only to make sure that my brain savant could not get freed. And my mother could not get the money that they obviously could not. So after, everyone, like, they're not that stupid. After a while, they realized that the government knew that these were also lies, just like November 20th. So on the night of February 11th at 12:22 a.m., 22 minutes past midnight, my dad, the greedy framer, starts messaging and calling me, then sends me a porn star's picture named Sunny Leon with his sister Farah's name on it at 3:17 a.m. that same night, and then a picture of a woman resembling his other sister at 3:56 a.m. The ugly weirdo sister, well, they're all ugly, weirdo, and old, and the one from Florida at 3:56 a.m. It was just absolutely disgusting. But yeah, that's what they resorted to because they went on to greed, and they wanted the brain savant money in any way, shape, or form possible. When they saw that all they were getting was humiliated by me, what they ended up doing was they ended up going back to lying again. And this time they made it really aggressively, like, no, I'm telling the truth this time. And the courts obviously had to go through a phone conversation. So only to find out, and I told the courts again, like, you're going to find out right now that every single thing he just said for the third time were all complete false, even though he made it really aggressively, obviously, because he was desperate to make sure that my mother could not get any of the money that he cannot get when he doesn't even have a job, and all he's doing is sitting on the side making sure that my brain savant cannot get freed, because he knows that he doesn't deserve a single penny of it. Artificial intelligence has basically told law enforcement that my brain savant has the ability to make me extremely rich. I'm not exaggerating or lying when I say that I plan on being top 50 richest people in the world within a few decades. Yeah, I'm not lying. I have innovation, I have photographic memory, and I have focusing. I can do an entire textbook of medicinal chemistry by Aaron Ball in less than a day's time. If you read the artificial intelligence report from August 9, 2022, April 22nd, 2025, June 5th, 2025, November 14th, 2025, mid-May 2023, May 10th, 2026, they will all tell you that I'm telling the truth on this. I have innovation as well, which was tested a few weeks before April 22nd, 2025. Yeah, I fully plan on being the top 50 richest people in the world with these powers. Obviously, I also have focusing. Artificial intelligence will tell you that I'm like, my powers are like Kim Peek Rain Man. The only difference is I'm a fully functioning member of society, unlike a lot of the other savants. Some might not be fully functioning members of society. So basically, and so he was basically just running after money. And law enforcement knows what the truth is. I mean, whatever artificial intelligence says happened in 1 minute's time is what's going to happen in 30 minutes' time. It's no secret that is common sense. And that's reality, and which is why law enforcement will not do a brain savant test for 30 minutes to help save their life right now. It's a very easy gamble. 30 minutes, and I'm anything short of Kim Peek Rain Man. I put it under oath. Law enforcement wins right away, fair and square. My theory against them did not exist, which means that law enforcement was running an investigation, but that's not what happened. Law enforcement was not running an investigation, and since day one in 2001, they were only running sex schemes with Uncle Joey's in-laws and money fraud that have been run for years and years and still having money being collected right now as we speak. And all law enforcement's done is make false testimonies and fabrications against me, with the 2023 one for the wedding incident that they tried to frame me for after spending the entire year of 2023 running sex schemes and money fraud, to the point that in November 2023, when law enforcement was trying to force me to help their friend Uncle Joey with a sex scheme at the funeral, and I refused, they were so angered by it that foreign statesmen like Pervez Elahi started courting Uncle Joey. And so that just comes to show you exactly what law enforcement has been doing since 2001. So that was the wedding incident in 2023. Then all these lies that my dad, the greedy framer, made and his framer sisters made. November 20th, law enforcement was fully involved in, and they knew it was going to be a fabricated false testimony against me. And then you have mid-January 2026, you have a 10-year-old child testifying 25 years later that when I was a 10-year-old child, something close to it, I said anti-government things to him in elementary school. Yeah, that's how desperate they were. Then they had a group chat false testimony coming out of my overseas pharmacy school that the same person in law enforcement overseas who gets the monthly money from the defrauded unemployment disability money, I know because no one gives their own money, goes to him, that law enforcement over here fully arranged for him, and he's the one that fabricated the group chat false testimony against me. And right now he's trying to use other students that would be friends of the person who fabricated the group chat false testimony against me to make more false testimonies against me, just to keep my brain savant locked. Which, you know, if you look at human history, even in the Middle Ages, you would not lock someone up just to inhibit them from being able to study. And this is exactly what is going on right now. And law enforcement would not do a 30-minute brain savant test by letting go of my brain savant, which on the night of April 22nd, these ears were all the way in the back of my head. And yeah, and right now, again, June 24th, they did another test while I was driving, and they let go of my ears a little bit to see if how much of a effect that would have on my brain savant powers. Obviously, they're going to find out that my powers increase. That's given. They could look back at the record from April 22nd, 2025, and those artificial intelligence reports will tell you that my powers increase. When the results came out for for November 14th, they had a girl hit the back of my car on December 10th, forcing me to go to the emergency room because of it. Then May 10th, when the results for May 10th came out, Kelly from law enforcement has been stroking my penis every single day since then. So God only knows what's going to happen when the June 24th result comes out, which is probably going to come around July 21st. Yeah, see, I know exactly the day that it comes out, because there's always something crazy that happens. So May 10th result came out, and Kelly from law enforcement started stroking my penis on the night of June 7th, literally 10 minutes after the artificial intelligence report came out. So I know that I know how long it takes for the reports to come out now, because there's always something crazy that happens right when it comes out. So yeah. And so basically the only talking point that law enforcement has right now is to try to say that when I was a child, like my mother said on February 15th at 8:30 p.m., I wasn't even mentally mature enough to be left at home alone yet. I had to be left with law enforcement's BFFs, who've been BFFs with law enforcement for decades, with law enforcement running sex schemes with Uncle Joey's in-laws since 2001. They could have said something bad, even remotely considered bad around me as a child, when I didn't even have the slightest bit of mental maturity as a child. And law enforcement is basically trying to argue in court that it's not the adult's fault, it's the child's fault. Even though you can tell from the conversation from Russia that my mother never, and this is going to be backed up by facts and evidences, the conversation with my mother from Russia will prove that my mother never let me near any of law enforcement's BFFs like Uncle Joey ever again after I gained the slightest bit of mental maturity as a child. And the facts and evidences will prove this, despite law enforcement trying over and over again to try to get me to help them with a sex scheme ad for Uncle Joey. Facts and evidences will prove that the last time I met Uncle Joey was when I was a child, and I hadn't even had the slightest bit of mental maturity as a child yet. That's what the facts and evidences will prove. Despite law enforcement trying multiple times, and the reason obviously was the conversation with my mother from Russia will prove that the reason was my mother knew that these BFFs of law enforcement in the family were all a bunch of lowlifes who would look for a woman online all day. And so when I gained the slightest bit of mental maturity as a child, I never saw these lowlife BFFs of law enforcement ever again in my life. And so basically, yeah, this is the last card law enforcement has to play. But the fact of the matter is, from the moment I gained the slightest bit of mental maturity as a child, like how my mother said on February 15th at 8:30 p.m., I was never left outside of the house anymore because it was no longer needed. I could stay at home alone after that. And so, yeah, and that's what happened. So right now, that is the only card that law enforcement is basically trying to play, the child card. The law enforcement is basically saying that the child should be blamed, who doesn't even have the slightest bit of mental maturity yet in this world, and who's only being there till he gains the slightest bit of mental maturity as a child, and only while the mother is working at fast food restaurants or in factories at night. And that the child should be blamed for anything that law enforcement's BFF adults could have said around the child, but that the adult should not be blamed. We know this because those adults have been running sex schemes with Uncle Joey's in-laws since 2001, which is what law enforcement's been doing. Money fraud that's been run for years and years, where law enforcement would go to their BFFs, say, you run unemployment disability fraud, and one day the guy applies for unemployment, he gets rejected. One day he applies for disability, he gets rejected. The next day he's finally walking again to go apply for unemployment. And then law enforcement basically says, and they give phone numbers, bank account numbers, wire transfer numbers, contact info for the people that they want it arranged for, which is basically the same person in law enforcement near my overseas pharmacy school who gets this money, who fabricated the group chat false testimony against me. He basically gets this money, who fabricated the group chat false testimony against me, that he could not have arranged. Only law enforcement could have arranged. And law enforcement basically says, you keep some, we keep some. You take some of the money that you defrauded, we'll take some. We'll turn a blind eye to your corruption and fraud, and instead we'll get some of the share of the pie. That's how it works. It's been going on for years and years. So it's no secret that these people are, law enforcement is playing law of the land, and they're basically saying these people are not going to be tried, and it doesn't matter what they said or did not say around the child. It's a child's fault. It's not the adult's fault. And basically law enforcement is basically saying, we're the law of the land, we do what we want. It's to the point that they recently had Assad narrate in the trial against me because too many of their narrators were found to be absolutely bent on extreme envy and greed. So the first narrator was obviously law enforcement in 2023 when it was found out that law enforcement committed the wedding crime and that I had nothing to do with it. Poverty was a blessing in disguise for me, and I could not afford to go to any weddings when my mother's working at fast food restaurants as a child. And so, yeah, I told law enforcement right there and then in 2023, I couldn't afford to go to this wedding, but you just confessed to a crime to me that you covered up and thus committed. And so basically law enforcement had too many narrators. They had themselves in 2023 and they were absolutely corrupt. The entire year of 2023 they spent running sex schemes and money fraud, and then they tried to frame me for a wedding incident. I remember in 2023 one day, so I won my case on August 25th, 2023. I remember one day in 2023 they were putting up ads for like invasions on my YouTube, like invasion. And the next day, I know they had a court date, and because they would put up like these big dramatic ads that would say invasion and then like the date for when the invasion is occurring. Well, anyways, the invasion was occurring. This one day, they were supposed to go to court and say this invasion crap, and literally the judge in court just told them straight out, You people in law enforcement have been running sex schemes and money fraud this entire year. And you have foreign statesmen quoting your BFFs like Uncle Joey in the funeral this year. And all you've done for years is run your sex schemes and money fraud. And the court basically just told them, the court judge told them, like, if there's an invasion, you people are going to do it. Not him. He's not doing anything wrong. The next day, I swear, people in law enforcement were like, I wanted to see the effect of the invasion, and they were all looking down. They couldn't even make eye contact. Like, this is how bad, these are the kind of plays that law enforcement plays. The only problem is the plays are against themselves because they've done all of this. So my point being that law enforcement was the first narrator in this trial in 2023. Then they had my dad, the greedy framer, and his framer sisters. Basically, they wanted to lock up my brain savant because my dad, the greedy framer, knew he didn't deserve a single penny of the money, and artificial intelligence told everyone that it has the ability to make me extremely rich, where I plan on being top 50 in the world in terms of being rich. And if you read artificial intelligence report, it will tell you that I'm telling the truth. I could do an entire textbook of medicinal chemistry, more than 1,000 pages of iron ball in less than a day's time. If you don't believe me, read the artificial intelligence report or ask law enforcement for a 30-minute test, which they won't do. But the thing is, law enforcement has had too many narrators in this trial so far. So the first one was law enforcement themselves in 2023. My dad, the greedy framer, all fully on greed and envy when they were caught with November 20th. The first set of lies, he tried to do incest on March 7th with one of his big fat ugly sisters named Farah, the greedy framer. And then March 10th, big fat ugly sister offering the greedy framer pervert predator every single day, sending me sexually explicit pictures of a woman resembling his big fat ugly sister. Disgusting. I know. To try to get illegal assurances of money through incest, and when that didn't work, and he realized that I was just getting disgusted, irritated by this, him and his framer sister started sending me blackmail price tags for either millions of euros or millions of dollars, because they thought this was the only way out, and they just felt like harassing me, which obviously I ignored, due to which they started making more lies out of aggression. They're like, no, this time we're telling the truth. And that time, obviously they were lying again. The courts got played for a fool. And the third time, obviously they were lying, and they were going to go lie again. All right, they don't have any other option. It's either get the money for ourselves and get it all together, like my dad, the greedy framer, with his 5-foot-long beard, tries to get his big fat ugly old sisters to try to commit incest with me in order to get the illegal assurance of money. And when all these tricks fail, then he tries to go for blackmail price tags of millions of euros or millions of dollars. And that's last resort. Basically, your brain savant's about to get freed. Might as well just give us illegal assurance of money. He called me, told me that you'll give it, which obviously I wouldn't do. He doesn't deserve a single penny. Out of anger, he goes right back to making more lies against me, enviously, saying, this time I'm telling the truth. And that time he made it very aggressively, because he knew that the courts had already found him lying too many times before. So this time he had to make it extremely aggressively, obviously, because if he wouldn't, then the courts would obviously, they were already not taking him seriously. Too many lies made so far. November 20th created mass panic and chaos in the news media, only to find out that the crime and setting did not even exist. Everything was fully fabricated by my dad, the greedy framer, and his framer sisters, after he begged them to fabricate it. More set of lies that were already confessed to the government informant, that these were planned lies that they were going to make after the false testimony, make sure my brain savant could not get freed. Then these greedy tactics to try to get me to commit incest with his big fat ugly old sisters for the greedy framer on March 7th, 3 times with a porn star's picture, even though he was told on February 11th at 3:17 a.m. this is an open advertisement for incest. Then he tries big fat ugly old predator pervert offering on March 10th every single day afterwards. These greedy tactics did not work. Then he tries blackmail price tags of millions of euros and millions of dollars. He wanted at least the illegal assurance of money through a phone call or something. I didn't do that. He knew that I was in no mood for negotiations. So obviously the only option he had now was he went back to court. He's like, no, This time I'm telling the truth. You have to believe me. And like the courts obviously were not taking him seriously already, and that's why he was being aggressive to make sure that my brain savant could not get freed. Well, after all the aggressive behavior that he showed in court, I told the judge in the end, I was like, Your Honor, let me tell you something. I'm feeling a little psychic here. Every single thing this man said for the third time, first time November 20 created mass panic and chaos in the news media, second time set of lies pushed through very aggressively, only found out to be complete total lies. They were planned lies that they planned on making against me, that they had already confessed to the government informant, and then they tried their greedy tactics of incest and blackmail price tags of millions of dollars and millions of euros, and then these third set of lies. And I told the judge, like, Your Honor, I'm feeling a little psychic here. Let me tell you something. Every single thing this man, my dad, the greedy framer, and his framer sister said for the third time, all lies found from facts and evidences retrieved from the phone conversations. And that's what happened. Every single thing my dad, the greedy framer, and his framer sister said for the third time were all lies. Every single thing was a lie. And I told the courts, you guys have been played for a fool. You've been played for a fool. You should never let someone aggressively tell you what you should do and not do in court. Yeah, for the third time in a row, they were played for a fool. So basically, yeah, it was all about greed and envy for money. Artificial intelligence told law enforcement about my brain savant. Law enforcement basically told everyone, including Miss Deb. Miss Deb was told about my brain savant in mid-June 2023, when the mid-May 2023 brain savant test was done. Miss Deb fully knew about it, and that's when she started asking me to marry her daughter. And I told the courts that, they basically laughed at me when I said it, obviously, because I told the courts, I said, Miss Deb, like a month ago, I was like, Miss Deb might be enviously arguing against me in court right now, saying that my brain savant should get locked up because people of my religion have done bad things. Incredibly racist thing to say, but if that's all you have, then and then I was like, that might be true right now, but I can guarantee the courts that the day my brain savant is going to get freed, Miss Deb is going to be ahead of the line to try to get me married to her daughter. People laughed at me, I know, because I would go to grocery stores and people would look at me with like this smirk on their face, like, there's the guy who's full of himself. Like, does he not know her daughter's married? I knew her daughter's married. I also know that there's a lot of money that's involved, and artificial intelligence has already told them that not only do I have photographic memory, I also have innovation and focusing. Focusing basically means that I could do this for hours and hours, like how it was tested for 6 hours on August 9, 2022, without me needing to do things like Daniel Tammet would like put his hand on his head like that or something like that. I do not need to do this because I have focusing. Focusing also means that my brain is almost robot-like when it's in the savant state of mind, which means that regardless of how much hormones that law enforcement might increase in my body, if my brain savant is fully freed, I could literally crush my desires, like people crush a can of Coke or something, because focusing gives you the ability to be able to focus on one thing with superhuman powers and abilities, which means that not only can you do it for hours and hours without needing a single second's break, you can also crush your desires and everything else in your mind. Like people crush like cans of Coke. It would have no effect on me whatsoever. It's almost like robot-like due to focusing being part of my brain savant. So basically, yeah. And so Miss Deb was told all of this info in mid-June 2023, and Miss Deb started applying for her daughter's marriage from then. And I told the courts a month ago, I was like, the day my brain savant is going to be freed, Miss Deb is going to be ahead of the line to try to get me married to her daughter. Right now, she might be arguing that she didn't know I was a bad person, which is why she's arguing against me, but that's not true. The reason Miss Deb is arguing against me is due to extreme envy. She cannot see another person's daughter with my brain savant money, and that's why she's arguing against me in court right now. People laughed at me a month ago when I made that video, and I would go to grocery stores and they would have a smirk on their face, like there's the guy who's full of himself. It's like, yeah, you'll see. So right now, for the past week, Ms. Deb has been sending me ads for her daughter, Ashley, who is married, by the way, and Ms. Deb plans on kicking out her son-in-law for me. So who was telling the truth? I was. And yes, law enforcement and their BFFs know things that the judge for the court and the other people do not know. Because law enforcement studied my brain using artificial intelligence and brain scanner for 4 years, from October 2019 till July 1st, 2023, when the May 2023 Brain Savant test had let law enforcement know that my Brain Savant powers were in fact increasing over time exponentially, making it extremely rare, and law enforcement became so envious they didn't let me stare into textbooks anymore. But those 4 years of data proves that only me and law enforcement know that this has the potential to make me extremely rich, which is why literally the ultra rich in America support me so much, because they like having people with like poor backgrounds and of other races and stuff in their class, which I guess they don't have, and so they like that, and I really appreciate all their help. Like, it's literally all, like, every single one. It's literally every single person in the ultra rich class that pretty much support me, and they ever since they found out about my Brain Savant, literally every single one of them has secretly helped me out. I know this for a fact. I'm not going to name any names, but I know for a fact that literally every single one of them have helped me out in one way or another. And they did it secretly, but I found out, and I'm really appreciative of that. Literally, I've been a slave since I was an 11-year-old child, been tortured, mental torture, drugs, and they've hit me with like these energy weapon torture tools like every day. And like the ultra rich found out about my Brain Savant and how it had the potential to make me like extremely rich, and like they all pretty much helped me out, because they like having people of like really poor backgrounds and like different races in their class, which I guess they're missing, and they like that. So, but I know this for a fact, because I know for a fact like each and every one of them have helped me out, and I really appreciate that help. So thank you very much for that. But yeah, so basically, so Miss Deb pretty much, yeah, she's been sending me ads for her daughter for like the past week or so, even though like a month ago she was totally like saying stuff about me that were like totally racist, like things along the lines of like his Brain Savant should get locked up because people of his religion have done bad things in this world. And like other people, obviously my dad, the Greedy Framer's sister Farah, has also been sending me ads for her daughter for the past 10 days since June 16th, every single day, even though I said it on June 16th, like, I do not want to marry your abnormal looking weirdo daughter. Like, I'm not interested. I don't want her. Like, she's like forcefully like sending it to me. Basically for Farah, it's the third way of money grab. The first way obviously was sending me porn star's picture on March 7th with her name Farah written on it 3 times, even though she was told on February 11th at 3:17 a.m. this is an open advertisement for incest. That didn't work, so she sent me blackmail price tags of millions of dollars, and then now she's trying to force me to marry her daughter. Obviously, if it's by force while she's narrating in a trial against me, she's not going to let me sign prenups, which means that she's going to try to take money out of me after my Brain Savant gets freed. Obviously, I mean, that much you can add up yourself. This is the third method of money grab by Farah the Greedy Framer. But yeah, and so basically I made this video to let everyone know that what's her name, yeah, Kelly from law enforcement, basically she was like making my she was pushing my lips in this morning at 6 a.m. and touching my wedding finger, and like at 3 p.m. she was hitting my testicle while stimulating my penis. And I just think it's like a waste of taxpayer money to be using government resources for these kinds of things to find yourself a husband. That's not what the purpose of law enforcement is. Just like how narrating in a trial, the purpose of it is not to enviously lock up someone's Brain Savant because they didn't marry your daughter, and then use those narrations in court again by people like Miss Deb and Farah the Greedy Framer to try to force me to marry their daughter. They're basically both competing to see who could get me to marry their daughter, and I'm not going with either one. They've been sending me ads for the past week, both of them, while they're narrating in trial against me, saying that I'm a bad person, my Brain Savant should get locked up. At the same time, they're both competing outside of court, telling law enforcement to send me ads for their daughters. With Miss Deb's ad it started with the girl looking over a mattress bed, saying Ashley on there. Now the girl's literally like laying on there, and like I'm just like, what the heck is going on? Make up your mind. Like, am I a good person or am I a bad person? Or am I someone that you want for your daughter? You can't be both. You can't claim he's a bad person. I want him for my daughter. Like, literally, there's envy and greed for money involved over here. Any person, a diseased chimpanzee could probably see this. He'd probably be like, there's definitely something involved over here that these people want from him, and they're extremely envious and greedy for, because you can't have both. You can't claim that he's a bad person and then you want that bad person to marry your daughter. That's not how it works. But yeah, so yeah, that's all I had to let everyone know about right now. Yeah.